gotten a look at the new GOP platform. Tell us what you can.
Well, the most striking part about it, Jake, is one, it is much shorter, much more watered down than what we saw in both 2016 and 2020, and it really mimics the candidate himself, which isn't that surprising because I am told that not only did Donald Trump help edit the document, but he also wrote some of the parts of the platform himself. So 3 of the parts I want to specifically point to. One is abortion. Again, a much more watered down version of abortion policy than we have seen in the past. There is no call for a national abortion ban, and in fact, he talks about how it should be punted to the states, something he has said since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. The other point I want to make is this of marriage. They took out how to define marriage as between a man and a woman. The third one that was interesting was instead of this emphasis on paying back the national debt, they focus on inflation and ending inflation and making America wealthy again. Again, national debt has been something that has been on the Republican agenda for decades now, really scaled back, and that's something that Donald Trump doesn't care about. The other points of focus here, Donald Trump, are things that we obviously have heard from the former president time and time again. Ending the weaponization of the government, talking extensively about immigration. What is also interesting, though, is that a lot of it is very vague. Again, this is a very short document compared to what we have seen in years past. So when it comes to federal agencies, for example, something that we have reported extensively on, how in a second term it would be likely that Donald Trump would have enormous powers under the executive branch because they would move all of those agencies under the executive branch. It's actually very vague as to what powers the federal agencies would have, Jake.
And there's this thing, obviously, that we've covered and have been for months called Project 2025. It's a roughly 900-page document. A number of Trump's former aides worked on the project, including Dr. Ben Carson and Ken Cuccinelli, former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, Stephen Miller, his convicted former economic advisor Peter Navarro. The former president has just denied even knowing about it. What's going on?
Yeah, Jake, what's really interesting, one name you didn't mention was Russ Vought, who is the actual architect behind this idea of giving the executive branch this enormous amount of power. And all the people you just mentioned are people who, one, participated in Project 2025, but also, two, still talk to Donald Trump on a regular basis. However, the campaign has routinely separated themselves from Project 2025, particularly as it's grown increasingly controversial, some of those policies in place. And now Donald Trump is saying he doesn't know anything about it at all. In a statement on Truth Social, he said, "I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who is behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them." Obviously, again, people that he knows who could even serve in another Trump administration. However, they have sought to distance themselves from it. Himself here doing it in a very Trumpian way, saying he doesn't even know these people, who many of whom he still speaks to on a regular basis.
Or literally currently work with his campaign. Kristen Holmes, thanks so much. Let's discuss with our panel. What's your take on this? Project 2025, we've all been covering it for months about, it's not from the campaign, it's from a bunch of conservative groups that support Trump. And as Kristen points out, Russ Vought, his OMB director, is like basically the architect of it. Do you believe that he knows nothing about it?
No, it's an obvious lie. But I do think there's a connection between that and the changes to the platform. For 8 years now, 10 years now, there's been this steady effort by a lot of intellectuals, activists, ideologues, activist groups, all that kind of thing, to craft something cogent and coherent and consistent called Trumpism, right? And the problem is you can't do that because Trump himself brags about how he goes with his instincts, he changes his positions, he doesn't want to be tied down to anything. And so a lot of these very committed people end up being made to look ridiculous. Kevin Roberts, the reason why Trump issued that statement was that Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, had gone on Steve Bannon's Goon Show, his podcast, and said, we're having a second American Revolution and it'll be bloodless as long as the left allows it to be. It sounded like a creepy threat, got a lot of bad press. And Trump says, okay, all of you guys under the bus, I want nothing to do with you.
Right.
You have committed pro-lifers for years who've pushed the GOP to be a pro-life party. Trump says this is a problem for me. Even though we got rid of Roe v. Wade, we're going to make the platform bend to me. I'm not going to bend to any set of principles or platform. And it's the consistent through line is the whole party has to shape itself to whatever Donald Trump wants at any given moment. And that means you're never going to have a consistent body of principle or politics.
And what do you think about the effort, for instance, to say in the platform, in the Republican Party platform, that abortion should just be left up to the states, which is obviously not what a lot of anti-abortion groups want him to do. They want him to commit to a national ban.
Right. I think that the Republicans know this is a losing issue for them. They've lost on every referendum that's come to ballots in 2022, and continually they will lose. So I think that Donald Trump is realizing that this is not the way he's going to get these independent voters and these suburban women that are on the margins where this election is going to be won. So I don't think he had a choice here. He had to bend. He had to move more to the center here, or because he knows it's a losing issue. This is the one winning issue for Democrats that can win on, and so I think that he sees that as an opportunity for him.
I think one of the reasons why a lot of people take Project 2025 so seriously, not least of which is because Trump didn't distance himself from it until a couple days ago, is that so many of the people that Trump is likely to put in his administration to run his administration are behind it. I mean, Russ Vought and the others, and some of the things in here. Roughly 900 pages of documents, banning abortion, issues having to do with contraception, IVF, changing how the government actually functions, getting rid of the Department of Education, allowing the new president to fire as many 50,000 federal workers to be replaced by political appointees rather than government appointees. Do you think that Project 2025 is a liability?
No, I mean, look, you've seen some consternation between the Trump campaign and Heritage Foundation and other groups that have been trying to, develop lists of potential appointees or develop white papers of what could happen in administration. You've been seeing that going on for months now. Remember, Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita, both with the Trump campaign, came out and essentially warned both of these groups to stop going out there and promising jobs or acting as if they were maybe recruiting for a future administration, essentially saying, we haven't won yet. And so, there is this difference of opinion between what actually should be out there as far as policy. I think the platform is much closer reflection of where Donald Trump wants to take the party than necessarily Project 2025, which, look, is probably the opinion of Russ Vought and a few other folks who are over at the Heritage Foundation. I doubt that the Trump campaign has gone through all 900 pages of it yet, though, to decide whether they agree or disagree on every single policy point. So they don't want to take ownership of a document they had no ability to craft into it. Even if a couple of those people may end up in the administration, ultimately it'll be Donald Trump's administration, be a reflection of the policies he puts forth, which is probably more accurately, closely reflected in this platform, which, by the way, is the first time it's really been updated in quite some time. Usually these platforms have become very like Frankenstein almost.
I thought there wasn't a platform in 2020.
Basically wasn't. It said what we said last time.
It was just like
it made no
Trump's
changes.
awesome.
Ditto.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What about these comments by Kevin Roberts, the head of the Heritage Foundation, talking about the second revolution is coming? What's the quote?
It will be bloodless so long as the left allows it to be.
That's not a particularly kind comment.
No, I mean, you see this sometimes. Donald Trump right now has been remarkably on message, right? I mean,
if you don't read Truth Social.
Yeah, right. If you don't live off that and don't follow the retruths, I think that's how you phrase that. The retruths. It's been very on message.
He's been quiet.
He's followed the adage, and I say this metaphorically, figuratively, not literally. When your opponent's committing suicide, don't commit homicide. Right? Like, you don't have to. It's the same result, and it's less messy for you.
Speaking of which, I want to get your reaction to what's going on with President Biden, because it seems as though I've spent the week, and I'm sure you have too, I've spent the week talking to Democratic operatives, Democratic lawmakers, all of whom unanimously don't think they can win under President Biden, and they think that debate performance was indicative of a bigger problem, not an aberration. But it looks like he's not going anywhere.
No, and knowing the president, he's dug in. I would be really surprised if he drops out. He believes in his bones, he is the person that can beat Donald Trump. He's been out on the campaign trail. He's been giving speeches. He's been taking questions from reporters. He did an interview. He is doing what people are asking him to do to show that he can do this and that the debate was just an anomaly. So I think that he's taking this to the voters, and I think he is showing to everyone with the letter today, with his call to Morning Joe this morning, he is not going anywhere. And the more people want to knock him down, the more he's going to want to fight. He's resilient, and that's just his mentality. You knock him down, he wants to get back up and show you he's better than that. So I think that is what we're looking at.
Just with respect, who exactly knocked him down? He fell.
I don't fair, but I think that when people are starting to criticize him from the left and the right, he's going to show people and show the voters that this is their choice, not anybody else's, and he wants to take that fight to the voters.
Until he has another disastrous moment, which I think is inevitable given the fact that it was not just an episode, in my opinion. And if he has another disastrous moment, it may come too late to fix the problem, even though it might be too late now to fix
Probably
the
is
problem.
too late.
Probably it's too late, you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is something the Democratic Party, if they really truly want to, could have corrected a year and a half ago. And look, talking to insiders, former members of Congress, current members of Congress, Democrats, I'd always say, well, what happens if it's not Joe Biden? It's got to be Kamala Harris. And they said, whoa, don't saddle us with that, because they know her disapproval rating is worse than Joe Biden's. And so they could have fixed this issue politically a year and a half ago. They chose not to because they didn't want to see the vice president at the top of the ticket. They don't right now, and that's why they're
Very
where they
quick
are.
last word.
But to be fair, she is polling higher with moderates and independents than Trump is right now, and I do think that's a positive.
Because no one's
She
been
does
talking
step
about it
aside.
until now.
Yeah. People are talking about her, so I just want to point that out.
Okay.
And she
Thanks.
could campaign, and Biden can't.
Thanks, one and all. Appreciate it.